The Land Cruiser bounces over terrain that barely qualifies as road, throwing up plumes of fine dust that coat everything in pale ochre. Thomas Mutua grips the steering wheel with hands that have spent 20 years doing exactly this, responding to distress calls, navigating landscapes most people only see in postcards, making impossible decisions about which lives can be saved and which are already lost. The radio crackles with fragments of Ma language from the pastoralist who first reported the situation. 3 days. A calf. Stuck. The mother won't leave. Something in the herder's voice carried an unusual weight, a note of awe mixed with concern that made Thomas grab his field kit without asking questions. Amboseli National Park spreads before him like a vast canvas painted in earth tones, dominated by Mount Kilimanjaro rising in the distance. February in southern Kenya means the long dry season is reaching its peak, when water sources shrink to muddy remnants and wildlife concentrates around the few remaining pools. The ground near seasonal rivers transforms into a death trap. Fine clay that appears solid but holds water beneath a deceptive crust, waiting to swallow anything heavy enough to break through. The coordinates lead him to a bend in the Kimana River, currently nothing more than a cracked ribbon of dried mud. He sees the elephants from half a kilometer away. 7 adults, arranged in a defensive formation that immediately sets off alarm bells in Thomas's mind. Elephants are family animals, and when a herd forms this kind of protective circle, it means something precious is at the center. Thomas stops the vehicle 200 meters out and retrieves his binoculars. Through the lenses, the scene resolves into heartbreaking clarity. The adults are females, a matriarch for younger females and 2 adolescents. They're standing in a semicircle around a depression in the dried riverbed, their massive bodies creating a wall of flesh. Their ears flap constantly in the 40-degree heat. Their trunks reach down periodically, touching something Thomas cannot yet see, making the soft, rumbling sounds that elephants use to communicate reassurance. He focuses on the depression. At first, he sees only shadow and dried mud. Then something moves, a small trunk, pink as a newborn mouse, lifts weakly before falling back. Thomas feels his breath catch. He adjusts focus, needing to be certain his eyes aren't playing tricks. But there's no mistake. The calf trapped in that mud wallow is albino. Completely, impossibly albino. In 2 decades working with elephants, Thomas has seen perhaps 3,000 calves, but he has never seen this. The calf skin is the color of raw shrimp, a translucent pink that reveals the blue tracery of veins beneath. Its eyes catch the light with an amber glow that lacks the deep brown of normal elephant eyes. Even sparse baby hair appears white. The animal is perhaps 4 months old enough to walk steadily, but young enough to still depend entirely on mother's milk. And it has been trapped in hardening mud for 72 hours. Thomas reaches for his satellite phone. This is beyond his capacity to handle alone. He needs the veterinary unit from Nairobi, heavy equipment, sedation drugs. But even as he makes the calls, his mind races through the immediate problems. Elephant skin is thick, designed to withstand sun and thorns, but adults still coat themselves in mud and dust to shield against UV radiation. This calf has skin with 0 melanin, designed for some Nordic climate that doesn't exist in equatorial Africa. It's been exposed to direct sun for 3 days. The burns must be catastrophic. Then there's dehydration. Elephant calves nurse frequently, consuming several liters of milk daily. 3 days without water, without mother's milk, under the sun. The calf should already be dead. That it's still moving its trunk means it possesses a will to survive that defies physiological probability. The matriarch has noticed his vehicle. She turns fully to face him, ears spreading wide in a threat display that makes her appear even more massive than her 3 tons. Her trunk raises, testing the air for his scent, and a low rumble vibrates through the ground. It's a subsonic warning that translates across species barriers. Come closer and die. Thomas stays in the vehicle. He's seen what elephants do to perceived threats. This matriarch will kill him without hesitation if he approaches that calf. The question is how to save it without getting crushed in the process. The veterinary helicopter arrives 90 minutes later, settling on a flat ground 300 meters from the elephants. Dr. Emily Karanja emerges with 2 assistants and enough equipment to sedate a small army of megafauna. She's worked with Thomas before on multiple rescues. She takes one look through binoculars at the albino calf and says a single word, "Fuck." The plan forms quickly because there is no time for elegant solutions. They need to sedate the entire herd, all 7 adults plus the adolescents. Approaching with a trapped calf, crying for help would trigger an attack no amount of human courage could survive. The sedation must be near simultaneous. Dr. Karanja loads 9 darts with carefully calculated doses of atorphine, a sedative so powerful that a single drop could kill a human. Each dart is color-coded for specific elephants, the dosage adjusted based on estimated body weight. Thomas drives slowly toward the herd, Dr. Karanja standing in the back with a rifle braced against the roll bar. The elephants respond immediately, the matriarch trumpeting a warning that splits the air like tearing metal. Thomas stops at 50 meters, the absolute minimum safe distance. The first dart strikes the matriarch's left shoulder. She wheels with surprising speed, ears flared, trunk raised, every line of her body telegraphing pure rage. Before she can charge, darts hit the other females in measured rhythm. The elephants scream, high-pitched calls of distress that carry for kilometers. They mill in confusion, unable to identify the source of the tiny stings pumping chemicals into their bloodstreams. Then the matriarch goes down. Not gracefully. Elephants never collapse gracefully. She sways like a falling monument, her knees buckling first, and then the full weight of her crashes into the earth with an impact Thomas feels through the Land Cruiser's frame. One by one, the others follow. Within 7 minutes of the first dart, all 7 adults are unconscious. Thomas and the team move quickly. Time is everything now. The sedation will last perhaps 40 minutes. Dr. Karanja moves among the sedated elephants, checking vital signs, preparing reversal drugs. Meanwhile, Thomas approaches the mud wallow. Up close, the reality is worse than he imagined. The calf has sunk chest deep into clay that has hardened around its body like concrete. Its front legs are completely immobilized. The small trunk reaches toward Thomas, instinctively seeking help, and he can see that the delicate pink skin is covered in cracks and blisters. Sunburn. Severe, 3rd-degree sunburn across every exposed surface. Its ears are swollen and weeping clear fluid. Its eyes are crusted with dried discharge, the membranes inflamed and bright red. The smell hits him, the sour stench of infection, of tissue breaking down, of urine and feces that the calf has been lying in for days. The animal is septic, but Thomas pushes that thought away. The calf is alive. That means there's still a chance. 2 workers arrive with shovels and a portable water pump. The strategy is to inject water around the calf's body, turning the hardened clay back into slurry. Thomas kneels in the mud beside the trapped animal, placing his hand on its head, feeling the rapid flutter of its pulse through skin stretched too tight over bone. He whispers words that the calf cannot understand but might respond to: reassurance, promise, apology for not arriving sooner. The water pump roars to life, forcing high-pressure streams into the dry clay. Slowly, reluctantly, the mud begins to soften. The calf shifts slightly, then cries out, a small, pitiful sound. They're hurting it. Every movement causes pain in joints locked in one position for days. But there's no alternative. 30 minutes into the excavation, one of the sedated females begins to stir. Her ear flickers. Dr. Karanja sees it immediately and injects a quarter dose of additional sedative. A risky call that might push the elephant into respiratory depression, but will buy them the minutes they desperately need. Thomas and the workers dig faster. The clay releases the calf's front legs, but the rear legs remain stuck. They need to lift it, physically haul it from the grip of earth. Thomas calls for the excavator, a small track machine brought along for exactly this possibility. They fashion a harness from webbing, carefully sliding it onto the calf's chest. The animal is too weak to resist. The excavator's hydraulics hiss as the operator takes up tension. Slowly, impossibly slowly, the calf begins to rise. The mud releases its prize with an obscene sucking sound. The calf's rear legs come free, hanging limply. They lower it onto a tarpaulin, and Thomas gets his first complete look at the damage. The animal is skeletal. Ribs stand out sharply through burned skin. The tail hangs limp, covered in dried mud mixed with blood. But the eyes, those strange amber eyes, still track movement, still show awareness. This calf has suffered beyond what most creatures could endure, yet consciousness persists. Dr. Karanja works with rapid efficiency, establishing in 4 line in the calf's ear vein, starting electrolyte solution that will address 3 days of dehydration. She injects antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, pain medication. The calf's temperature is 41 degrees Celsius, dangerously high. They cover it with wet towels, trying to lower the body heat without inducing shock. Behind them, the sedated elephants are stirring. All of them now. The matriarch's trunk moves, searching. Her eyes open, and even groggy with drugs, they fix on the humans clustered around her baby. A rumble builds in her chest. Thomas makes the call. They're out of time. Dr. Karanja administers reversal drugs while Thomas and 2 workers carefully lift the calf onto a stretcher. The matriarch rises with a bellow that speaks of rage and maternal terror. She's still unsteady, but she's vertical and motivated by the most powerful force in nature, a mother's need to protect her child. The other females are rising too, trumpeting distress. Thomas and his team move faster, half carrying the stretcher. 50 meters to the land cruiser. 40. The matriarch is coming, picking up speed. 30 meters. 20. The workers throw the stretcher into the vehicle and pile in. Thomas hits the ignition and floors the accelerator. The land cruiser lurches forward just as the matriarch reaches where they'd been standing, her trunk swinging through empty air, her scream echoing across the dry riverbed. They don't stop driving until they've put 3 kilometers between themselves and the herd. Only then does Thomas check on the calf. It lies on its side, covered in wet towels, the 4 line still dripping fluid. Its breathing is steadier now, though still rapid. The amber eyes are closed, but the small chest continues to rise and fall. The drive to the Kenya Wildlife Service Veterinary Unit in Nairobi takes 4 hours. Dr. Karanja rides in the back with the calf, constantly monitoring vital signs, adjusting fluid rates. By arrival, the calf's temperature has dropped to 39 degrees, still high, but no longer critical. Against all probability, the albino elephant calf survives the first 48 hours of intensive care, then the first week, then the first month. The geneticists arrive from the university to take samples. The DNA analysis reveals complete oculocutaneous albinism, a recessive genetic trait requiring both parents to carry the mutation. Somewhere in Amboseli, there are elephants moving through the acacia scrub with this hidden code written in their cells. That this calf was born at all represents a statistical anomaly. That it survived 4 months in the African sun approaches the miraculous. But how did it survive? Researchers reviewing camera trap footage from Amboseli find the answer. In dozens of hours of video, they spot the albino calf always positioned in the center of the herd, surrounded by adult bodies creating moving shade. The matriarch and other females deliberately place themselves between the calf and direct sunlight. During the hottest parts of the day, the herd moves to areas with tree cover, waiting out the brutal afternoon hours in relative shadow. They've adapted their behavior to protect this strange, vulnerable member of their family. It raises profound questions about animal cognition and empathy. Did the matriarch understand that her albino baby needed special protection? The truth likely lies somewhere between intention and instinct, in that gray space where biology and consciousness blur together. 3 months after the rescue, a decision is made. The calf is healthy enough for a carefully managed return to Amboseli. It will be placed in a semi-wild sanctuary within the park, an area with artificial shade structures, mud wallows treated with UV-blocking compounds, and constant monitoring. The herd can visit, can maintain social bonds, but the calf will have protection from environmental factors that would otherwise kill it. Thomas is present when they transport the calf back to Amboseli. The young elephant, now significantly larger and stronger, seems to recognize the landscape. Its ears perk up. Its trunk samples air thick with familiar scents. And when they open the transport crate near the sanctuary, the matriarch is waiting. She hasn't left the area in 3 months. The reunion is immediate and overwhelming. The matriarch rushes forward, trunk reaching, making the deep rumbling sounds that elephants use to express joy. The calf responds in kind. They intertwine trunks, touching, smelling, confirming what their hearts already knew, that family transcends separation. The herd surrounds the albino calf, forming the same protective circle Thomas saw when he first arrived at the dried riverbed. But this time there's no aggression toward humans, only a focused devotion to the small pink elephant in their midst. They will protect it. They will adjust their lives around its needs. It's a behavior that speaks to something beyond instinct, a capacity for compassion that makes Thomas reconsider what he thought he knew about the inner lives of animals. As the sun sets over Amboseli, painting Kilimanjaro in shades of rose and gold, the albino calf nurses from its mother for the first time in 3 months. The matriarch stands perfectly still, trunk resting gently on her baby's head. The calf that shouldn't exist, that defies the rigid laws of natural selection, drinks deeply and lives. And in living, it proves that survival is not always about perfect adaptation to environment. Sometimes survival is about being loved enough that others will reshape the environment around you. Thomas watches from a distance, knowing he'll spend years studying this elephant. But for now, he simply observes the reunion in silence, acknowledging something that science sometimes forgets, that the most powerful force in nature isn't competition or selection, but the fierce determination of family to protect its own, no matter how impossible that protection seems. The albino elephant of Amboseli lives because a herd decided it would live. And that decision, repeated every day in 1,000 small acts of accommodation and love, turns biological impossibility into breathing, nursing, living reality. The world watches the rescue video and marvels at human intervention. But Thomas knows better. Humans extracted the calf from mud. The herd is what kept it alive before that moment, and what will keep it alive after. The real rescue operation began 4 months ago and continues every moment of every day. A rescue performed not with helicopters and sedation drugs, but with shade and patience and the ancient wisdom that some lives are worth protecting simply because they exist.